It's an understatement to say that a lot of us were surprised by Shedeur Sanders' historic slide in this year's NFL draft. I myself had him going number 6 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders so that he can sit behind Geno Smith for 2 years, develop, and then get his shot as a starter. I could have also seen Shedeur going to the Steelers in the first round as well. And I could have envisioned a world where Shedeur did slip out of the first round just because of teams' needs this year. But him getting taken not in the second, not in the third, not in the fourth, but the 5th round of this year's draft, I couldn't have seen that coming in a million years. And watching the coverage of the draft, it was almost like a fever dream. I'm sitting there watching it Friday night, and you get past the 2nd round, he's not taken. And then you get late into the night on Friday, and he's not being selected. And teams like Cleveland, like New Orleans, like the Raiders, who would select a quarterback, they're not taking him. They're taking other guys, like the Steelers skipped over him as well. And I'm just sitting there, like, pinching myself, like, is this real? Is this actually happening? Yes, it was. And then Saturday begins, and part of the way into the draft on Saturday he's not taken. And then finally, Shedeur Sanders is taken by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round, the 144th overall pick. It was a very interesting pick, to say the least. We may break that down in another video, but for now we're just going to focus on the situation surrounding Shedeur. It was a historic slide, and I was talking to some friends about it. I was getting texts about it, about why he could have possibly fallen as far as he did. And I know that I had my concerns about him, which is why I could have seen him falling out of the first round, but being taken early on in the second rounds. The 5th round, that was a stretch. It was eye-opening, and it just left a lot of us puzzled. And so those concerns that a lot of us had early on, and I'm sure this contributed somewhat to the slide, I'm going to lay those out right now. His arm strength, that's always been a concern for Shedeur Sanders, being able to heave the ball deep downfield for those deep bombs, those post routes. That's been a concern. Is he going to be able to execute on those at a consistent level? And that's reasonable. That's viable. This was the concern that I highlighted during a lot of this season here leading up to the draft. He holds on to the ball too long. He tries to stretch and make magical plays happen, and therefore he sacrifices yards. He gets sacked and loses 7, 8, 9 yards in a clip, and those are draft killers. Instead of just realizing that the play's dead, that there's not a lot of opportunity there's not a lot of breathing room, he tries to extend the play, make something happen. And instead of just throwing out of bounds, he takes that sack. And that can be brutal. That can be suffocating for an offense. That can take the wind right out of the offensive sails. Just screw the momentum right over. And NFL scouts, front offices looked at that, and that is a huge concern because that's also a tendency that's hard to coach out of quarterbacks. There's guys that we've seen in the league and that we've seen in the past that had that trait, and no matter how hard you coach them, no matter how much of an emphasis you put on minimizing that act of holding on to the ball for that long, it seems just come back time and time again. It's habitual. It's hard to coach out of guys. And so that was a huge concern. That, too, is valid. While those are legitimate concerns, don't get me wrong, can they really justify a guy who's projected by many to go in the first round, who was number 3, number 2, even number 1 on a lot of guys' draft boards for quarterback, falling all the way to the 5th round? I don't think so. But I'm going to dive into the substance, the real meat and potatoes, the juicy details as to why Shedeur Sanders fell all the way to the 5th round. It's fascinating. Deion Sanders appeared on a podcast called the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, and when he was asked about if there's certain cities he doesn't want Shedeur Sanders to go to, certain teams he doesn't want him to play for, he answered that question by saying this.
Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget Shallow, okay? Mm-hmm. But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen. He's gonna
Okay,
be a
you
Peyton
on
Manning.
point.
It's gonna be. It's not. I'm sorry. It's gonna be an Eli.
Additionally, Todd McShay, who's a name that we trust a lot on this show, explains the other day that when Shedeur Sanders went to interview with the Giants, Brian Dable asked him a question. He appeared unprepared. Brian Dable called Shedeur on it, and Shedeur didn't really like that much. And Brian Dable didn't appreciate the fact that Shedeur didn't like that constructive criticism a lot. And so that goes a long way. That immediately turns Brian Dable and the Giants organization off on Shedeur. And word like that will spread, because that's a huge red flag, not being able to take constructive criticism. This is one that stuck out to me during the college football season last year when Colorado lost to Nebraska. The way that Shedeur Sanders responded to that adversity, he blames his offensive line for the offense not being able to click, not being able to get drives going, and for essentially being the reason why they lost that game. That is very concerning. That is a huge red flag for me as well, because it shows lack of accountability. And if that's how you react in those situations, it's a telltale sign of how you'll react to adversity down the line. And that's a huge quality, a huge trait that general managers, scouts, front office personnel evaluate in this league. How do you respond to adversity? Do you hold yourself accountable? Do you vow to get 1% better every day? Or will you deflect blame onto those around you? And that speaks for itself. That game, that reaction speaks for itself. That's stuck with me to this day. I haven't forgotten that, because Shedeur did deflect blame to his teammates, and that's a really bad look and something that will not be forgotten. Lastly, a report surfaced that Shedeur Sanders essentially sandbagged interviews for teams that he didn't want to play for. I can't confirm who those teams were, but the fact that he did that is not only concerning to me, but disgusting. And if that is true, which it was reported by CBS Sports, so I'm almost certain that it was. CBS Sports is a very credible source. That word is going to spread around the league. And even though all these teams are competing against each other in the NFL draft, everybody in the NFL knows each other. Front office personnel, they're all connected. They all talk. If one or two or three of them experienced Shedeur Sanders sandbagging their interview process, they're going to talk. And they're going to find a way for him to slide. And I can almost guarantee that that's what happened. It was intentional. Because those guys talk. They communicate. And when you piss in somebody's Cheerios like that, the word is going to spread. And phenomenons like Shedeur Sanders falling from the first round all the way down to the fifth rounds, that will happen. I've never seen a fall like that. This may be the most catastrophic fall that I've seen any player who was projected to go in the first or the second rounds experience. This was absolutely unreal. But those are the reasons why, yes, there were the concerns about arm strength. There were the concerns about Shedeur holding onto the ball for too long. Those are legitimate. But there's been quarterbacks in the past who have had bad qualities like that, but still get taken in the first or second round because guys know that they're manageable. But sandbagging interviews and lack of accountability, that will result in a catastrophic fall. And one last thing that I'll note here, Deion Sanders will be involved in the process, day in and day out, whatever team that Shedeur goes to. He went to the Browns, and so they'll be experiencing that. But whatever team was going to take Shedeur, you're going to get the whole Deion Sanders experience. It's like a reality TV show. It's like the Keeping Up with the Kardashians of college football in the NFL, of the football universe. Whether you support it or you're against it, whether you like Deion Sanders or not, it's external noise. And a lot of teams don't like that. There will be somewhat of a sideshow. Whether it's good or bad, no matter how you perceive it, there will be a sideshow. There will be distraction. And so some teams just simply don't want to deal with that. I think that was also a factor in Shedeur Sanders' slip. A lot of teams are just cognizant of the fact that that will be the reality. It was a very unique and complex situation here as to why Shedeur Sanders fell as far as he did. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think anything like this has happened in NFL history, but I want to know what y'all think about the situation in the comment section below. I'm looking forward to interacting with y'all. Thank you for watching and have a great day.